doesn't matter what gauge your model railway is in, sooner or later you will come across derailments. What causes them? How can we avoid them? Hi, welcome back to St Blazy Model World. I'm Roger. This time we're looking at dreaded derailments. I'm determined to keep this video short so that you can get information as quickly as possible and get back to enjoying your model trains. So let's crack on with the basic causes. I'm going to show you 99% of scenarios because I'm sure that the remaining 1% will be covered in the comment section by people who say you didn't explain this or you didn't show me that. Little dig at the keyboard warriors there. Right, let's have a move on. It's very simple. If 99% of your rolling stock covers your track without any problems, but that remaining 1% of rolling stock does fall over, you've got a rolling stock issue. Conversely, if 99% of your trains roll all around except on one particular location or two locations, you've got a track issue. And your basic diagnosis need be no more complex than that. Of course, sometimes the cause of our derailment is quite obvious, but it isn't always so. Right then, let's get straight to it. Track first, that's the easiest one. Straight track, you might think is no problem, but there still could be issues. I spray my track with sleeper grind before I lay any of it. That's to give me a head start on weathering, but I may have introduced contaminants. So check your track for contaminants. I glue my track down, but if you're in favour of pins or screws and you've been a little too enthusiastic on a particular sleeper, you'll have pushed that sleeper down into your deck. And what will that do? Well, it will pull the two rails closer together. That effectively alters the gauge, distance between the two inner faces of the rails, and that could be the cause of your problem. Points, turnouts and curves are notorious for introducing issues, there's no doubt about it. And the biggest issue really with points and turnouts is the switch blades. These can move. They move along the line of the point here, and what that will end up with is that the switch blade, when it hits the stock rail, is not actually in alignment. You can get some filing done to reduce that, or you can buy strips, I think they're evergreen strips, that allow you to prevent that lateral movement of the switch blade along the point. They simply slide in here where the switch blade actuators are, and you know that can reduce it, but it's worth double checking. There are several videos on these evergreen strips on YouTube already, so have a look and see if that might be helpful to you or remedy that particular problem. And of course, it's even worse if we've got double crossings, single slips, double slips, and all the rest of it. But these are the sorts of things that you're going to have to check. Lastly, at track, we come to rail joiners, fish plates. They're notoriously fiddly, aren't they? And wherever you've introduced a join, wherever you've used these things, you have also potentially introduced a derailment situation. It's worth checking every single join. I don't say for 1 second lay a piece of track that's 2 foot long and test it, but sort of for every sort of 6 to 8 feet of track I lay, I test it with a range of rolling stock afterwards to do all that I can to reduce problems later on. If you found this video useful or even just entertaining so far, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Subscriptions are free on YouTube. Having considered track, let's take a look at our rolling stock. The very first thing you can do if it's one particular piece of rolling stock that's causing you an issue is to check the back-to-backs of the wheels. And I'd highly recommend buying a back-to-back gauge. This is a double O gauge, one 14.5 millimeters. You can get them certainly in N gauge as well, or a pair of vernier calipers, just to make sure that the distance on those axles is perfect, or as near it perfect as you can get it. The next thing you might need to consider is the weight of your rolling stock. In the background is my double O gauge class 40. It's a Bachmann model, and believe you me, it's heavy, really heavy. That is never going to fall off. But these little CDA wagons don't weigh a lot, and you might find that you need to introduce some ballast weighting. And that's especially true if you've got a rake of these things, you know, sort of 20, 30 units long, going round a curve. If the wagons are too light, they do tend to get sort of pulled inward to the bend and that can cause a derailment. Experiment with your ballast weighting. Get a little bit of blue tack, put it on maybe the top, which is not the ideal because the centre of gravity is at the bottom, but it will give you a gauge. Get a bit of blue tack a couple of nuts and bolts to it and see if that improves the situation. You'll soon get a feel for how much ballast weight you might need to add to your rolling stock. And while I'm on the subject of these beautiful CDA wagons that I have, it's time to go back to my days as a kid with Sesame Street, because one of these things is not like the others. One of these things is not the same. And this is something you can really easily overlook. I've acquired about 30 of these CDA wagons, and I bought them here and there, model shows, retailers, online auction sites, etc. But let's just have a look at what's going on here, because I'm just going to separate these two. And when we come to look at them a little bit more closely, you can see that we've actually got two different types of coupling in play. Something else for you to check. I hope you've enjoyed my short and brief guide as to what might be the cause of your derailments, and I hope you've been able to take away some valuable information. As always, please remember to hit the like button on the way out and consider subscribing. It's free on YouTube and it really does help me grow my channel. That's all for this one. Stay safe. We'll see you next time at St. Blazey Model World. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.